It's good to have that. I'll give this to you.
We are live.
I'd like to call the Police Advisory Board meeting to order on July 21st, 2025 at 6:01. We're good? Start over? Okay. I'd like to call the Police Advisory meeting to order on July 21st, 2025 at 6:02 PM. Up first with attendance.
Councillor Yanush. Councillor Morton,
Present?
Jane Davis,
Present.
Guido Fernalani,
Yes.
Mark Phillips,
Present, non-voting member.
Acting Staff Sergeant Tim Doyle.
Present.
Thank you.
Any announcements? We have one announcement. West Hants Regional Municipality acknowledges that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral non-ceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality also recognizes that we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. West Hants Regional Municipality also recognizes Africans, Nova Scotians as a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions enrich the part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move down to approval of agenda with additions or deletions for approval. Moved by Guido and seconded by Councilor Yanush. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, Tim, you don't have any conflicts, do you? You're good? Just checking. Approval of previous meeting minutes, April 28th, 2025, Police Advisory Board minutes. Moved by Guido, seconded by Councilor Yanush. All in favor? Motion carried. Presentations, there are none. Business arising from minutes, and old business, additional resource request. Tim Doyle, Acting Staff Sergeant.
I believe you got the couple of documents I sent out for the quarter. I sent a report from Superintendent Popick, and I've also got my quarterly here on this. I'm not sure how much in the weeds, like I said, you want me to go down in on just for this, because I know I was able to get to you in advance on a bit, but I'll cover over the broad strokes of it. So I'm
Yeah.
not
Polls notes.
repeating everything that you guys have already read.
Yeah.
Just with the positions here, obviously, Staff Ferguson, his position has been vacant. I've been bumped up to that. So my replacement is slated, probably mid-September is what we're looking at. He's going to be releasing to mine. I think he has a little bit of leave, and then he's going to come over here probably third to fourth week of September is when they're expecting to have Staff Sergeant Nugent in here. So that's the goal for me, but you're probably going to be stuck with me after that, because I'm going to be probably bringing him along to show him what some of the expectations are for the advisory board at that point. And further, I'm probably going to look at seeing if Superintendent Popick would like to come to the next one in October. So yeah, you've met him, Guido. So that he can be present and be any questions on that as well. Just he was trying to get out and talk to all the areas in Southwest Nova. So I got to send him the date on that, which I believe is the 20th, if that's all right. So with the vacancies I'm running right now, in the staff sergeant spot, I've got Corporal McDonald. So everybody's been bumped up one, and we're hoping to resolve a couple of spots here, through whether it be a discharge or whatnot. So that will help with the manpower strength on that. So I know Dave got down in the weeds talking with Kyla and going over, the 4.97s and the soft vacancy and FTE utilization. So at 19.81. So we're still running below on what we have for occupied positions. Getting into no issues with the fleet. We're getting our vehicles replaced as needed. We had one that ended up being bumped to this fiscal. It started in the previous, but I'm noticing that right now, honestly, before we even get into the financials, that car repairs and all that have gone down just because we're having newer vehicles that are not falling apart and having major repairs. So I think we have two of our older Chargers slated later end of this fiscal year, which just for evergreening. I threw in this year, again, some of it's, I apologize for the layout of what you're used to on some of it. I've looked at some of our previous reports. Some of the systems and how they end up running the data slightly changed, and some of the people have changed. So how I'm able to get some of the presentations. So the blue charts on the following pages, you'll see financials will stay the same, but there's a few other charts there that people that Dave relied on to get you guys what you're used to seeing. It's changed slightly. So there's different charts and whatnot. So I can pursue looking at it, but honestly, if they're already doing quarterly reports and the data's there and it's just a different format, I might just, for the sake of the man hours involved, you might see some changes on that. But if there's any issues, let me know, or if there's any questions on it and how it's presented. The data will be there. It's just how they manipulate it to fit on charts, graphs, and whatnot. So for calls for service, oh, sorry, the financials here. I got ahead on that. Was talking with Kyla Dow Friday. She just started vacation on this one, so everything is tracking to where we're expecting. Given with the FTE utilization is on track with the personnel, everything is tracking in line with that. I don't know if there's any specific questions you had on this. I'll try to answer it for the financials, but as we're looking right now, again, one of our big ticket items that we talked at the last one was our live scan evergreening. That's the fingerprint system. So they look at that about every 8 years. So we have a new system. It's due to be installed in August, but we actually have it in our possession now. So there's a few of the high tech items that will show up on this, but that's all been through the budget and we're still tracking quite well. So is there anything on any of this that jumps out to you that want to get in the weeds on?
Any questions on financials? Seeing none?
All right. So I added this one here just to kind of give an idea of the history on the call volumes and whatnot. So first quarter this year, first quarter last year, it shows up a couple hundred. A lot of that has to do with our resourcing, and we're able to get some proactive done. So when you get into the traffic stuff and whatnot, so that's going to reflect in those numbers, which is good for me because, again, I don't want panic on this side because it's good for me because now we're not doing reactive policing, we're doing proactive policing as well out there. So that's where we're able to get bodies out. They're getting the contacts they're able to do. And one of the easiest measurables on this, honestly, is some of the traffic stats that the guys are out doing. We've been doing blitzes, like the prom, for example. The guys wrote in force on that, running with the prom, had traffic services involved. So you'll see the numbers on that. So if you look at it, it's oftentimes like it can be a jump in crime, but it's also a lot of proactive stuff. Again, I use tickets as one of those ones. And I just wanted to throw in the last number of years because you can see the trends on it. It is trending up as the populations trend up. So, and that'll be on that and with the proactive work too. So it's not limited to tickets. It's my street team and whatnot. Getting into, and this is the blue charts. I think it came through on you guys. I won't get into the weeds too much. That gives you a comparison of the last year's quarter and this year's quarter of where things are going. You won't see anything too much out of the ordinary. You'll get a plus minus of a certain amount. Traffic's the one you're going to see on the next page. You're going to see a serious spike for speeding because I've got a couple of really good diggers and workers on that they're out there working and going. So you will see that spike on the speeding violations. But that's because the guys are out there looking and going. And also because we've engaged Valley Traffic Services as much as we can to have them out here as well. So they'll register in this area, not as a resource, but they'll, because they write the tickets or do the work out here, it'll reflect for this area. Anything on those ones in particular?
Any questions in that group? Hold it, hang on here, Guido.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm looking at the roadside suspension alcohol. Is that correct? None in 2024 and 11 in 2025?
These are just quarters, so.
Oh, quarters, I cannot read
Yeah,
on top.
it's just comparing, because a January to March quarter, the winter time tends to be a bit slower as the weather gets better. So I
Just
just
that.
wanted to compare apples to apples
Okay,
for quarters to quarters. So if I compared a January quarter to this quarter, it
Mhm.
could be different on
No, but my question was, is that because of the proactive stance that has more speeding speeding
it's gonna have a
violations?
definite correlation to that, because they're out there pulling cars over, getting their face in it. Absolutely, that will also reflect.
Thank you. Excellent.
Any other questions for Tim on this one? Seeing none, carry on, Tim.
All right, now we're getting into our calls for service map. So this is one of the ones I had to fight and beg borrow to get them to make it the map for me, because the resource that did this before is no longer there. So I had to do some sweet talking on this one. So they were able to map out our calls on this. So I'll see if we can figure out how to get this done another way, but this may be one of the last times we see this kind of thing on it. But I find this very useful, especially for you guys. I know where they're at on the maps, so we see the calls, but this is a great one to see where the trends are and whatnot. So this is one of the ones I'm gonna try to see if we can get some additional resources on to do the mapping on this. So again, you see the bulk of them, of course, centralized and then sporadic all throughout. So the members have been busy in all ends. Murphy's Law, a lot of times you'll get a call on one end and have to go to the other end. So they've had that a few times this summer. Anything on that?
So 168 calls for the rest of West Hants and 752 incidents in Windsor. The way I'm reading it, or?
So yeah, in the highlighted blue area, let me see if I got the right chart here. So I had 2 working copies. Yeah, so I got 752 in the Windsor core in that blue map area.
Yeah.
And then 920 incidents outside that.
Outside of that, so it's 752 plus 920.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at the top, it should give a total of just under 1,700, I think 1,699 incidents total. Again, some of them will be bolstered by some of the traffic initiatives that we've been trying to push. Here's the reason I have this. So we've had one of the constables responsible for a lot of these numbers, Constable Bruce Jordan, has been just working hard and just driving. He's one of those ones he's very passionate about. He got the Heidi Stevenson Award. So in that one, you see the member in red surge, that's him getting the provincial award for the Heidi Stevenson. So for getting impaired drivers. So he's the guy in the middle. So Jordan's in our area and he's been just amazing at going that. So he received there's 3 medals. He got the gold Heidi Stevenson Award. I can't remember what they had on many impaired that is, but that's, you're looking at probably 40 or 50 impaired, which is still insane in my mind in this day and age. So he's been out hammering the road on that. Most of the stats on this in the narrative as we go down, again, I won't get into the weeds on it, but like, look at the top one. We issued 298 tickets. That's up from 206 from previous. So yeah, and you compare 319 warnings to 180. So like they've been out there hammering at a lot of it. They're trying to get that visibility. And honestly, it's the impaired drivers that I'm more concerned about. You get the, insurance, register, all that other stuff, but the big one is road safety for impaired drivers. Is there anything in all of these that have, again, all this drop down, all these bullets, is there anything there in particular you had any questions on?
Guido?
Yes, Tim, I think it probably is reflecting what we saw at the provincial level. Is impaired driving also including marijuana?
Yeah, so we do have drug recognition. It does factor in. The bulk of these honestly were alcohol.
Okay,
So we will have there's a breakdown in some of it because we do track on impaired by drug and impaired by alcohol. But yeah, marijuana absolutely factors in, and the bulk of them are still alcohol, but we still have quite a impaired by drug. So it's trying to keep ahead of the curve on that one as well. Because oftentimes you have impaired by both.
hey, well, that makes it easy. My question is, technically, we have, I think the name is the breathalyzer for alcohol. What is how do you find out the impaired driving by marijuana?
So there's some swabs that they have access to, and it's usually done through a drug recognition, like a DRE, drug recognition expert. So I don't know the name of the actual device, to be honest with you. I'm not a highway guy, but I know they have one that they're able to do swabs and get, I believe it's presumptive and qualitative tests off of it, or enough to get sometimes some blood work. So if you do a blood demand.
Okay.
So, but there is the technology there and the swabs on it.
It is immediate response?
I honestly don't know how
Okay.
fast. It's not long, because I mean, again, with that, the technology would be quick. For any of the drug work that I've done, I would say it'd be quite quick, but I can't
Okay.
speak to how exactly it works, as I'm not that guy. So
Thank you.
I can get you an answer at another time if you want, but I can look into it.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Yanish?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Tim, if somebody suspects an impaired driver, first of all, do they call 911? And second of all, do they have to have the license plate number?
License plate definitely helps because it narrows it down. They're able to run the checks fast, and then they can see where, again, the registered owner, the RO, the address. All right, so they run all their checks and they can get a specific information on that, because oftentimes we'll get a call of a car and it's the wrong make or model. And it could point the guys in different directions. Doesn't have to be. If it's an urgent situation, absolutely call 911. Someone's driving currently, call 911. If it's something that's not an emergency situation, I can't think of many when it comes to impaired driving that you would call the non-emerge line, but
Well, that's
if it's something that's happening all the time, we get calls of saying so-and-so is driving drunk on a regular basis every morning at this time to this time, going to this location. That's a non-emerge thing that we'll send the guys out and hopefully be able to pick them off at that point. But I can't think of many that we wouldn't be calling 911 for, but plate definitely helps. Because we'll get some very, very vague information, and then we'll end up pulling over the wrong car while that other car probably wanders off. So but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't have to be. And people will often get the plates wrong anyway.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to read. Yeah, thanks.
Seeing no more questions, carry on there, Tim.
So with our GIS section, Councilor Trenholm has been tasked. We've been currently working on a fairly high resource heavy file dealing with child exploitation of another province. So he's done some absolutely amazing work. So he's had to do MLAT, so mutual legal assistance treaty through the different countries to get information where the servers are located. It's a very laborious process, but we're dealing with the suspect we've now identified out of Ontario, and we're working on right now with different agencies out there and trying to get him under arrest, get him out here, get him before the court. So he's been dealing with one. That's one of the bigger ones right now that he's been dealing with. He's been back a couple of times to help out with that's homicide out of the Kingston area. It's because he again, very talented individual. So he's helped out with that a few times. And again, other than helping our street team to an extent, because they've been getting some other taskings, he's been very busy on a lot of the judicial authorizations, which are very time consuming. So, but he's still, I believe he's charged, he's got one individual charged with 3 controlled drugs, some CDSA Act. So he's still been busy. He's one of our support services. We look at our GIS as a support and reactive for the most part to stuff that comes in, where our street teams are a proactive, go out and find, especially on, drugs, thefts and stuff like that. So he's he's very, very busy, and that's one of those ones, the conversation down the road, I could use more of him because that is a huge crossover for our general duty guys. School safety officer. So first of all, Constable Collins is off now, and I don't know if I'll see him again, unfortunately. So he's in a process where he may not be coming back to work, which is a massive hit to us at this point. So still in contact with Richard. He is one of the most valuable school liaisons I've ever had. We're still trying to figure out what's going on there, but he's one of the provincial positions. But it's a massive loss to us. So Richard is right up until I found out he was very, very busy and great contact with that. So, but he was very busy over this quarter with all the schools, whether it be like he's done a ton of traffic enforcement, the checkpoints, the investigation that he's taken, the fundraisers, the spring fling. Richard is, again, I don't say I've been everywhere. He's probably the most valuable guy I've ever had when I came into that role. So I have no idea what I'm going to do right now to try to replace someone that valuable. So we just got to make sure his health is good, and we'll work the rest of it out. So I've included some of the stuff here. I don't know if there's any questions on this in particular, but he's been, as you can see in the photos, he was heavily engaged and an absolute force to be reckoned with the community. So we had one of the bike rodeos there. We had a bunch of people out on that, and yeah, it's always good interaction on that. So I don't know if there's anything on Richards. Once I figure out what's going on that, we're going to try to get that sorted out, but that's a massive loss to our detachment. So street crime. They've been busy on this. We've had the Metassett Operation Highfield. You've probably seen that on the news. That was all the dispensaries. So Superintendent Popick has been moving around. So these are the provincial units in order to tackle some of the mid-level organized crime. I sent out the report that he had there for you guys' kind of information on what's going on in the region, because I can't deny it. It's not a bad idea for you guys as advisory boards to kind of know what's happening in the area and where the trends are. We're one of the gateways to the rest of Southwest Nova, same as Chester is down there, where they're coming through. So they're moving resources around right now and lining up different projects where you have, instead of a team of 2 from us, then you can have a team of 8, 10, 12 in very short order, depending on what's going on. So what now they're doing, you'll see that they're putting in different projects and proposals for different things in the area. So we'll see how that goes. This is just going, and they're dealing with all that. Of course, they're no longer under my umbrella. So we'll see how things go on this one here, and we'll still be pushing through to have, as needed, them to start pushing, doing some of the proactive stuff. Because again, you guys remember from the last quarter where we had that massive seizure on that. So, and that was all to the credit of my street team here. So as we go and we get a handle on it, they're tackling all the major crime, organized crime elements. And we noticed from that one seizure how that trickled right down the valley from our crew hitting them up here. So we're going to see how that plays out. And he'd like to present on this, but he wanted me to send out that copy to you guys as well, just so you're aware of what's happening in the region. So I can't speak to everything in it, but I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Any questions in that group? Seeing none, Tim, you carry on.
So. All right. So still pushing to have our crews out and about in some of these areas, typically have, and you'll see from the checkpoints. We're pushing out. As we get in the summer, we're also dealing with summer leave. So sometimes we're not pushing out as far as we'd like on some of these, because anytime the guys have gone out there, something twisty has happened in a higher call volume area. So we're still working on trying to push out checkpoints as we get calls out. but the checkpoints overall have been, well, they've been productive and useful in the impaired enforcement on that. Let's see. Under significant and noteworthy, there's a variety of things that we've had happen in this area. I won't get down to the weeds. I probably won't be I don't include in this one. I don't know what they've had in the past, but I don't typically put persons crimes on there because this isn't kind of the forum for it, but the members have been very busy with a lot of persons crimes that have taken up a massive amount of manpower. So warrants and whatnot when you get to domestic violence and stuff like that. So they've taken, it is quite an endeavor when you're going through a lot of this. So they've had quite a few to deal with. But some of the big ones that you guys have seen too is like the major fatal accident they had out in Falmouth. So that was a massive use of resources when it came to everything. And I guess the big thing I wanted to mention on that is that firefighters, everybody, they said that this was absolutely amazing how everybody seemed to work seamlessly on that major accident, because the 5-person fatal does not happen very often. And it is just a gong show at times when you're on scene in the dark trying to figure things out. So they handle things absolutely amazing. The interoperability, they were on their mutual aid channels with all the radios that's we end up covering and rolling out and practicing on. They said that was a very well run operation at that point. So I'm really, really proud of my crew on that. But we had to have some debriefs, of course, afterwards, because it was a horrific scene, but making sure the manpower is looked after and everybody's doing well. But that watch in particular has had a lot of rough ones when it comes to death. So they've run across a lot of it. So they've had a really good debrief system and the supports are in place. But I just wanted to highlight, like, it's not just us, the fire department here, the ambulance, everybody just worked really, really well. So it's I couldn't be more proud of the team on that one for how they handled that major incident. Dealing with mental health crisis, I think that's actually down slightly on this. We still run across some. We're quite engaged with Posse, Kim Kent and their crew. So I've met with them. I've done some consulting when they involve the RCMP on just some policies and safety things, and they'll ask on different stuff. So we've talked on that. We've with the diversion, I gotta see if I get the acronym right, but the diversion equity inclusion, DEIC or DIEC. I get the acronym. So I've been on some of those so far, trying to jump in where Staff Ferguson was at before me on that. Yeah, so we're just continuing with as much of the proactive stuff out in the communities as we can, meeting with the boards, and I'm still going with the business association meetings, keeping up in touch with them, and yeah, and then my crews are out running again. We're getting our parole violations breaching, so that's a lot of our stuff is a lot of breaches, and then the resulting stuff right now as of June 30th. We don't see it so much for this quarter. I'm curious to see how it's going to go for the next, as it's all in Kemptville Court now. So that's going to be a bit more interesting when it comes to navigating that court time, travel costs, prisoners. So one of those ones that we hold them for the morning and take them to court. 5 minutes away is now a bit more of a different process on that, and Kemptville Court runs slightly different, where we could run down to here, swearing information, come up, get the individual, and then off we go to court. There are some issues with, and we're still trying to sort it out, but the sheriffs won't take someone unless they have a sworn information. The court won't take an information by fax. So the member you have to send 2 members down. One runs upstairs to swear the information while the other stays and guards the prisoner in the car. And then they come back down with the sworn information, then the guards take them. Or my other option is to send the member down, swear the information, drive back, get the person, drive back down. Depending on what we have for coverage and what we have. So it's a bit of an animal and a beast that we're trying to talk to the courts on. And yes, we're going to see how that plays out, and I'll hopefully have more statistics on it, because it is a bit of a complex problem. So with three, again, RCMP, the court house itself, and then the sheriff, so all of us seem to be operating slightly different on that, so. But we're working on it. I've got another meeting with that working group at a different point. But hopefully, again, even if it was one member going down, it's still one member out of my area. When sometimes we have shift minimums of two and two guys on, or girls.
Question, Guido?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to know if the 11 deaths were including the major accident.
Sorry, what was that?
The 11 deaths in the quarter, where are they inclusive of the
Did I
major
say
accident?
seven, is that the one that says seven sudden deaths? 11 human death investigations, so those would be sudden deaths aside from that.
Aside from that, okay.
So if we don't get they'll send it home. If you ever had a loved one on this one, expected death at home. So it's what we call it. They call it in actually through the doctor's office into our telecoms. So it doesn't trigger a full police response. Because any sudden death that's not expected, so sudden, we have to go make sure there's no foul play on that. So yeah, so these ones will be all that. We're starting to get more and more through the doctors on expected death at home, which means we don't have members deployed to that,
Okay.
which actually does save resources, but unfortunately, we still get more than I like in an item.
Okay, then one more thing. Can you explain again the role of the sheriff in that process with the court you explained before? If you can go through the movements again, I didn't fully grasp it.
So the sheriff's on that, they're responsible for the prisoner care in the court system. So if they're going to appear before court, we bring them, I'll use Windsor Court as an example. We bring them there, we turn them over to the sheriffs. The sheriffs are responsible at that point. They're now in their custody and they will move them from the cells up and down from the cell area to the courtroom when needed and back down, or if they're released. But if they're back down and have to go to Burnside, then now the sheriffs, because they're in that court system, now are responsible for transport to Burnside.
And usually the court you go to is what, Dartmouth?
Now the court now we report to is Kemptville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dartmouth is where we don't use that for the court system. We use it for the correctional center. So if we have certain ones we do, if there's no sheriff available, we're driving them into Burnside. So
Okay.
the correctional facility there. But for all of our court stuff, if they're going to appear in court, is Kemptville now.
Okay.
So, and then again, and that's just the issue here. Now, if we have certain ones, they do have transports go back and forth on at different points for transport, mostly to the correctional facility. We can often arrange that, but we have to know by a certain point of the day, so they stop in, grab the prisoner, take them to Burnside. Like if it was a warrant or whatnot, and it's, yeah, they're in custody. But that doesn't really apply on the other one where we've got to bring them to court for their appearance.
So what I want to understand better is a little bit the goat, the cabbage, and the wolf on the same boat. You explained that, you know, one officer goes up, then comes down. What is that?
So, so I have to have one person stay with the prisoner.
Mhm.
It's just for safety, continuity, all that. So they're sitting in the back of a car. They're not actually in cells because they're not into the sheriff's custody at that point. So two members down, one stays with the prisoner to keep eyes on him. The other person goes up to the court, swears it for justice of the peace, brings the information down, the piece of paper, and they hand that piece of paper to the sheriffs. The sheriffs now take custody of our individual.
Okay.
We had in the past in some of the previous days where we would give them a blank information. Here's a blank one. I'm going upstairs to sign the other one. I've got it. Trust me. And the member, they would just take them and then we'd go up, and they were taking it on good faith. They were, and then sign it and come back down. And that was the process at one point, but no longer.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Yanish?
Yeah, thank you. Tim, a couple of months ago, I had a visit at my place from Posse, and Kim Kent brought 4 young individuals with her and introduced them as the newly hired mental health crisis I don't know the exact title that they had. And it sounded like there were more of them, that these were just 4, and that there were more hires, and that they were going to be working in West Hants. And I think it was a provincially funded program. I'm just wondering if if these individuals have been busy, or has there been any reporting on, because what they're supposedly doing is replacing the work that otherwise RCMP officers would be doing. So I'm just curious if they've been, if you have any knowledge of how busy they've been.
I honestly don't. They don't report to me, and there's certain arm's length that they like at times where they don't want us around in uniform. Yeah, we're working on that relationship on that, but I honestly don't know how busy they are. I couldn't speak to that. I'd like to think that we've seen a drop in certain things from certain people. And I'd like to think it's because of that outreach, but I have no data to support that. We just don't have that reporting system on that of how busy they are. But again, we do see some stuff there where things have dropped down in some aspects with certain people, some of our regulars.
But there's no indication that they would be reporting to you, just like a progress report, and to try and, say, how many interventions that they've made. It sounds like it would be an important thing. Keep track of.
We've had the discussion on that when we've done some of the breakout groups on the meetings, and I've talked about, keeping track of your stats, for the lack of a better word, like what's going on. And we've talked about, I talked about in particular my experience of, if you document it well for this one here, and then someone new comes in, they've got all that information to deal with someone. They're not coming in brand new. So we've talked about the reporting system and how to make sure that they keep track of their stuff for the benefit and safety on that. And I kind of came in on the safety side of things. So as far as I know, they were still working on that, because if they're looking for provincial funding, I'm going to guess the provinces wanting to see what they're getting for their money.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but at that point, I can't speak to what they have and how they do it. Or even if they would share that with us.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So I'm thinking the bulk of the way through a lot of it is the courthouse is one of my bigger ones to talk about. Just we're still determining how that's going to make our life work, for how our shifts will work, because we'll run a certain amount of bodies. And what now has happened is that myself and Travis have jumped in a bunch of times and helped facilitate transport, because I don't want to leave some of my guys alone. So we'll help do that. So we'll see as it comes in the next quarter how often that's going to do it. And we're going to keep a very close eye on it. But that kind of comes down to where we've had the discussion in-house about, and then we talked about briefly here about a corp spot. We talked about that before you even saw this on the radar, about having a dedicated a public servant for court, just because of all the demands with the e-disclosure and all that other stuff. Now this threw a bit of a curve at us. Now I don't think we'd be looking at a public servant, because now I would be looking at wanting to have a uniformed member who's armed and capable of doing the transport. So that's not another body. Even if I had a public servant, I'd still need, a uniformed member to help do that tasking. New Midas is able to do a public servant on that one. Jamie's amazing, but their proximity. Jamie's able to zip down, and she's got status where she can swear and do whatever, but she's minutes away. I don't even know if they're 5 kilometers away from the courthouse with the New Midas detachment to Kentville Court. So their proximity really helps. And just there was the court spot we talked about, and I guess to keep it alive on this one here, another supervisor. So I've got 4 watches, 3 supervisors. So what had happened is from we did the amalgamation from the town and the rural. So now we've gone to a watch system. So it's a bit of an interesting trick on trying to cover 4 watches of 3 guys to have that there. So just trying to scheduling. So I have the coverage for all the supervisors on as many members as I can on the same watch, but just to level it out, it makes it tricky on that.
Guido?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. When you say watches, what do you mean for watches?
So we'll call it teams. So I've got 4 teams. We can call them watches as they rotate through. So just so we have that coverage. So we have 4 teams, 3 supervisors. So that's what makes it a bit interesting on that one now, because we've had 2 of our supervisors off for prolonged periods of time, and that really bounces everybody up into an acting role. So an acting supervisor. So I have one of my guys, Constable Trites, for example, excellent member. But he's now doing his job as a constable and a supervisor because I've got him bounced up. So if I have the resiliency for the supervisor side of things, where I could have 4 and say if I'm down 2 now, that makes it easier to spread the workload over those guys evenly on it. So, and then now with the new SKU thing, with my street teams now being pulled wherever they're going to be in Southwest Nova as a provincial team, my reactive GIS bot, he's going to be very busy because I was able to use them in the past to help supplement anything that I needed. So now they're not, I've got 2 bodies that are no longer a resource. So that can be a conversation for a later date on that one, but it's the moving pieces on this, I think with the organized crime and how he's going to tackle is going to be very good. I think that's the play to have because they're looking at doing mid-level because we have serious and organized crime out of the city. We have our street teams and there was no one really tackling the middle. So for that organized crime level. So that's what he's dedicating these ones to at this point. So, and if I can get even my general duty members back up and running closer to full-time or full with whatever the numbers, the FTE positions, the more I have in there working, the more proactive they can be and less reactive.
Okay, so to understand this shift, all this shifting in internal shifting happened because of Richard and Dave leaving the station, or there is more in the game?
The shift was up for SKU. That was came right from the top at Superintendent Popick. He's moved them around and reorg them to who they report to. So that's 2 buddies that are housed here. They'll still end up looking and trying to keep a finger on the pulse for what's happening here, but they're going to be dealing with more project level investigations. So if we have 3 or 4 targets, Kings has 3 or 4 targets, they're going to look at them, see what, and just triage them. What's the most viable one, and surge the resources at them. So rather than 2 people taking 3 months to do something, you've got 8 people hopefully taking a lot less. So they're going to try to end up doing that and focusing and bouncing them around to do that. So again, that is something to be seen for the long term. Of course, my knee-jerk reaction when I no longer have 2 bodies under my control, I'm like, okay, how do we plug that gap? But I don't think it's going to be much of a gap with that, just because now you're going to have that concentration of resources taking shorter time to tackle these projects. Highfield, for example, they executed all those in a short amount of time. So they surged all those resources. I think there's 60 or 70 bodies they had in total, and they were able to hammer that within a couple of weeks. And they had all those dispensaries right around this Southwest Nova.
All right, that does your Jane.
Has there been a discussion at the provincial level of replacing the Windsor courthouse, or is that a done deal? That's not coming back no
I
matter
haven't
what?
heard anything on that. There's been no indication for refit. There's been no indication that'd be coming back into a new building that I've heard of. I'm still hoping to speak with someone in the DOJ and whatnot, see if we can get any information. I don't know, you might be able to speak to the status of the courthouse here, but as far as I know, it's done and over for the courthouse here. So, and I don't think with how they're hubbing all the courts now in all the different areas, I don't see it coming back. Not the way they've just finished a refit in Kentville. I think they're going to be calling that for the Regional Justice Center.
Thanks, Tim, on the report. So your suggestion on this report would be move all the crime to Kings County, make it easier for us, right?
Yes,
Gotcha.
absolutely.
All right, up next is new business, farm vehicle traffic. Okay.
The second report is more for your information. I don't know if you wanted me to go over it. That was the street crime one. That Superintendent Popick, that just gives you a rundown of numbers and what districts are working on what. So I didn't know if you wanted me to get into that. That was for your benefit, just to kind of see what an overall picture was on that. So that initial chart gives you the areas and ongoing operations, and then he goes down for a summary of what's happened so far or what's on the books. So you'll see with West Hants, he's got a variety of different ones. Again, some of these stuff we can action, some we can't. Some stuff goes dormant depending on the information. So that gives you an idea of what West Hants has had in the last while for investigations. And again, a lot of the stuff is you're doing an investigation, you're doing the disclosure on an investigation, you're getting information and you're backgrounding an information and teeing one up. So you kind of go through stages all the time where when you get into the disclosure, your other guys are getting into teeing up the next investigation. So I'm trying to line it up as quick as you can. So there's no downtime. Well, it's disclosure anyway, there's no downtime. That always keeps us busy. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the region's dealing with. Myself, again, this is more of a July thing, so it'll be the next thing, but next quarter. But I've been very busy with doing a bunch of kicks with our team. We had them here, I don't know, a week or two ago. So we did a hit out on something there. We used the ERT team on a high risk warrant, and yeah, it went seamless. But again, since I've been here, we've used our team quite a bit on high risk warrants. So, because we had some real bad ones there where you could see, and I speak freely, it's echoes of Marathorpe when you're coming in and just some of the indicators. So I'm not sending my guys up a lane away like that when you've got those threat indicators. So that's where we end up using the ERT team, and we've had no issues, which is perfect. That's what I want. So we'll use that and surge them as we need when they deploy the full package on that. So with the SKU, yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of what they've had for seizures in globally for Southwest Nova. You'll see activity, you'll see all the different charges, search warrants, source debriefing reports. Again, you'll see those numbers, and as we get more and more success on takedowns and arrests, the more we end up dealing with source information, the more we end up dealing with a lot of the other stuff. So it almost seems to build its own momentum when they get going. And yeah, so it gives you a rundown of street value of stuff seized, unstamped cigarettes to coke and meth and all the other stuff, and then cash seizures as well. So that was an overview for him. This is something that Superintendent Popick wanted pushed out, so you guys have that awareness. So what's going on in the region, so it's not everybody operating in silos. So and we're able to move back and forth because borders mean nothing, and this is quite transient stuff. So we're seeing surges from influence in the city down in Yarmouth and Digby, steady. So it's very fluid, and with the street teams doing that makes them more dynamic and able to deal with some of the stuff. So I don't know if I'll put that. That's why it was a separate document. I'll probably won't include them all the time, but I wanted to have that for you guys, just situational awareness.
So 235, 150 is West Hants? Is that everybody?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Right now for this quarter, I think it was a
region.
quarter. Yeah. So. Yeah, because West Hants, I know we were on that one seizure in March, was it? We were almost 500,000. So that's not the numbers for us. So.
Sorry, when we say region, we intend Southwest Nova or Nova Scotia?
Southwest Nova.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Yanis?
Thank you. Tim, what happens to the cash seizures?
That goes back to the government, and they disperse it. It's not like the states. So that goes back to the Receiver General, and then they goes back into the coffers of the government. So the states are different. We see a lot of that. It does not go back to the departments. goes back to the receiver general. Then that just goes into their budgets.
Be nice for our budget too.
Yeah, it would. I've worked a lot with the Americans, and I can also see why there's so much fighting over some of the big files. So that can cause issues in the long run too, of what's your motivation to get. I mean, to me, a street level dealer is probably going to impact more people than someone else in another area. So this means a lot to them. So when they start avoiding some of the street level ones because they want to go with a meteor target's got to shine your car, the stuff you can seize. So this one here at least keeps everything rolling where it doesn't influence decision making and triaging. So as much as it would be nice to have stuff back.
Jane?
Thank you. I've seen Breaking Bad, but I don't know what TUSI means at the top of that list.
I'll look there. I'm not sure what he used for that acronym as well. Yeah, I don't know what he did there. I don't know if that's a typo. So I'm not sure what that one's supposed to be in there.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I'll have to Google that. Yeah.
Any more questions on this report? Seeing none, we'll move down to farm vehicle traffic.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yanis.
I decided to put this on the agenda after a couple of hair-raising trips with farm equipment on the 215. And I don't think it's basically what happened, slower moving vehicle, and the number of cars that attempted to pass me or passed me on a curve, towing boat trailers with double lines. Like it was honestly scary. And so, I talked to a few people about it, and turns out, some of the other farmers are experiencing the same thing. But of course, the conversation went further, and people were telling me, yeah, but it's not just farm equipment. There are people, everyone seems to be reporting incidents where people are trying to overtake slower moving vehicles, or people that are within the speed limit, but the passing is taking place in very, very dangerous conditions. And so my motivation for putting this on the agenda, and it certainly wasn't just something that's unique to my district. In fact, we had a counselor on the former council that used Councillor McLean, Mark McLean. I think every year, and usually in late or early September, he would talk about the importance of road safety when it came to farm vehicles. But I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity there to work with the Federation of Agriculture and the RCMP for some sort of an public education program that might address some of these concerns. And even though it might be focused on farm vehicle safety, it would sort of reach out into the overall traffic safety issues that we're seeing with not just, and I'm not talking so much about speeding, but just hazardous driving when it comes to overtaking people in dangerous conditions, dangerous zones. So I just wanted to throw it out there. I think in the past, the Federation has worked with the RCMP, but it could be a long time ago. My memory's, well, it's long, but it's not very good. But I think there were programs in the past, and I'm just wondering if that's not an opportunity going forward.
So you're asking for an information session with both groups?
Well, first of all, I just want to put it out there for discussion and thoughts to see if maybe it wouldn't have any benefit. I don't know. but it may have a broader benefit. So I wanted to throw it out there and see,
I can check certainly with the strategic comms, because sometimes they have stuff that's ready for dissemination. So like motorcycle safety, cyclist safety, they'll have packages on that they'll blitz out at certain times of year
right?
for stuff. I can check with our strat comms on that, see if they have something that could get out. Yeah, but I agree with you. I think overall it's the overall aggressive driving, if you will. And again, it's not, you're right, it's not restricted to just farm equipment. It's watching people pass and doing stuff, or just because something is in their lane, be it a piece of farm equipment, because that's now occupying the lane, they figure that allows them to go over by someone else's lane.
Yeah, exactly.
Going straight at them. And you see that all the time for every vehicle, whether it be parked or a bicycle or whatever, they'll go right over. And but I can check with our strat comms to see if there's a education piece on that could be sent out. And I don't know, they may be able to coordinate the municipality and send it out on different forums, because they'll end up sending it on the Facebook groups or whatever they have for social media platforms. But I can check on that and get back to you.
No, I think it would be, it's worth a conversation anyhow.
I don't have any contacts with the Department of Agriculture, or I don't even know what the Department of Transportation would have something on that. I don't know what the signage, if the signage in the area would be good, depending on the roads you're talking about, whereabouts in the 215, but or if it's something as simple as a factor where cleaning the ditches, be able to see around that corner, because some of the areas there where they're growing right up tight to the road really changes how far ahead you can see. So I don't, again, certain parts of the area might be an idea to engage DOT on that, but maybe if you have a contact with Department of Agriculture, see if they've got something as well.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I
have no contacts with them.
yeah, no, I wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah.
But I'll let you know.
Strat comms, and then yeah, but with the area, if you can speak to, like, if there's certain areas that are worse than others, it may be a Department of Transportation issue as well. Maybe help with some of the signage or help with some of the clearance on the side of the roads, because I do know that there's some areas I've dealt with where it is uptight. It's getting better. They've been better at clearing the stuff back, but there's some hairy turns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. I'll look into it from the department end of things. I'll let you know.
Great. Up next is Nova Scotia Police Review. So, Mark?
Maybe I'll lead on this one, and if Staff Sergeant has something to add. I think what we might have heard from his report is, quite frankly, some of the vision I think that comes out of this report. Not to say that West Hants, as far as community safety, doesn't have some work to do, but I think if you have the benefit of kind of comparing it to a smaller community, medium size ourselves, and then the larger communities, I think you'll see that the medium and larger size communities, and arguably those with RCMP, are a bit more in alignment with the strategy. There are six, or the review, there are kind of six fundamental changes that they are promoting, of which, again, we're trying to benchmark ourselves here in this area, as well as other police services across the province, just as to where we are in relation to that. And the six key areas for improvement are standardized technology and information sharing. So they speak to a single RMS. RMS would stand for? Of course, thank you. And practices that would be shared, of course, across all jurisdictions and different police forces. I'm sure there's certain things that municipal versus RCMP have access to, but some of the file sharing, probably not. Some files, but you could speak to that. The next one is to ensure appropriate police staffing across Nova Scotia. So, of course, ensure all the things that Tim was talking about earlier, the ability to be proactive or reactive. And again, as you compare ourselves to other areas of the province, and you could add the vacancies in on that as well, then are we staffed appropriately? Now, of course, the Minister of Justice on all of these items, but certainly on staffing levels, has a responsibility to sign off on what it is that you are providing in relation to the Police Act and in relation to the standards. So I'm sure there'll be some reflection moving forward, each municipality and the service, and do they meet that expectation? The third one is to adopt layered policing to support community policing initiatives, and that one speaks to community safety officers, bylaw enforcement officers, as we might have, civilianization of certain positions that either support directly or indirectly the delivery of policing services. And of course, as you go again across the province, some have in-house dispatch, some have in-house municipal admin, combination of federal admin, and that whole mix. My opinion is we're kind of probably somewhere in the middle on that, with the fact that we do have bylaw enforcement in place where some communities do not. But I think there's probably also room for improvement there. Especially you hear Tim talk about mental health in the court system, but where are we in the police or in the hospital environments, and the difference between security and armed officers and some of these challenges. Revamping police oversight systems for greater community involvement. So in some cases, ensuring that police advisory boards are in place, that we have the right citizenry representation, and in some cases that we have the appropriate provincial appointments, of which Jane is one. And perhaps even a bit of reflection on that process, because I think it's quite a process to get appointed and then sometimes to get reappointed. So there's some recognition of that. And then the last one is, the fifth one is to strengthen the policing standards. So of course we have new policing standards from some of which we don't hear so much here. Probably the body worn camera is the most obvious one that we've heard about for some time now. And as that is rolled out, but there'll be other standards. And again, Tim may note those. And then the final one is exploring alternative funding and billing models for municipalities policed by the RCMP. So probably not so much of a change for us there with a fresh municipal policing service agreement or an MPSA, which may have been seen as a kind of a negative thing with respect to cost, but with respect to modeling, we kind of have it in place. We have what would be our core service, and then of course we have the menu for the additional items that we would be charged for when and if they are needed. Maybe a piece of equipment from outside the area when it arrives to support something that's going on, or a human resource. And this one is more significant generally for the municipal police services, in particular the medium and small ones, as costs for major events, the unfortunate case of a murder or a death, where sometimes the smaller or medium-sized municipal units don't have those resources or that expertise in-house. And it's either been part of a bigger investigation or something that's been provided free of charge. So there's kind of that pay as you use, the user system kind of moving forward, which again, we're kind of used to here, or we have that full menu already. So standardized technology, assuring the appropriate staffing levels, adopt layered policing, support safety in our community, revamp the community involvement or oversight, adding to the strength of the standards, and then exploring alternative funding or billing mechanisms for communities that may not have been paying for the service. So those are some of the high points. Of course, it's supported by a full report. I think it's 120 some pages, led by Deloitte. And some of the outcomes, at least at the CAO and the administrative level, are still being kind of worked through so we can understand. But we do have a bit of an advantage as being a municipality that has a new agreement and kind of a new understanding versus the old way that it was done, or pre-existing PPSA or pre-existing municipal service that's been in place for an extended period of time. So that'll be a little bit of an update. Hopefully I've hit the high points, Sergeant. If there's anything else you'd like to add, please do. But that's the highs.
No, I mean, you've covered the high points on that. I mean, unless there's some specific questions on it, we can go into it. A lot of this, you guys, it's not going to affect here at all, because you guys have already have that stuff in place. It is the other ones that's for years we've been given that service. And honestly, I think for you guys at this point, if I'm going to read it correctly, there's been millions of dollars gone out to help supporting other municipalities that don't have the contract with us when we go and it wasn't charged. Now, if that's gonna get contracted out, whether it be to us or some other agency, that's not gonna take away from the RCMP's budget. So hopefully it's gonna go into things such as tech and staffing and whatnot, and having more people in these positions. So if there's something going on, then you have a more rapid response, you have a more comprehensive response. And yeah, with the RCMP's budget alone, it's gonna stop us from starting the year in the red, where we did that incident in Bridgewater, which was 5 or 6 days with full deployment. So that's a lot of resources that Bridgewater never had to worry about. So this municipality doesn't have to worry about, you already had that in place, that if the big red button gets hit, we come. So, and it's covered because of the contract.
Thank you very much. Seeing no more questions on that, we'll move down to Nova Scotia Department of Emergency Management update, EMO related.
Okay, I'll take the lead on this one as well, Mr. Chair. So the province of Nova Scotia is basically rolling out through their not so new anymore, but Department of Emergency Management, where they're creating regional or territories for them as a province, so they can be a bit more in alignment with the EMO operations that are ultimately a municipal responsibility. This will look a bit like a staff up, where they're looking to hire regional coordinators. I'm not sure if we have the title yet, but there will be provincial representatives assigned to each area. Our geographic area more or less includes the Annapolis Valley. We anticipate their office will be in the Kentville area as far as kind of where they'll hang their hat. We'll expect to see some resources at that site. Might be as simple as pamphlets and camera-ready material that for use for educational for information. There'll be materials there to support the operations during times of an event, so we can expect them to be active. To kind of speak at a higher level now, the province is moving into basically a 24/7 model as well, where they used to say they have activated the emergency command center. For the most part, it will be live 24/7, where they will be watching and monitoring and being able to respond without having to call somebody in and staff up, which we haven't really had a negative experience here in West Hants, but we have had the experience of them having to staff up as an event either builds or as something is forecasted. So we're seeing higher level of preparedness at the provincial level ongoingly, and then we have regional offices that will be established. Those regional offices, in addition to the things that I said, will help the municipalities through some of the training and some of the exercising that will benefit the whole area. And those are often the challenges that municipalities face in the downtime, especially around the exercises, where you have multi-jurisdictional, the things that Tim would have mentioned in the accident that he would have experienced, not necessarily an EMO response, but just the multi-jurisdictional operations. And fortunately, those things don't happen often. But we have had a few experiences here in West Hants, including our floods. So it all just helps prepare all of those agencies, from health to transportation to social services to emergency responders, be better prepared. As we drop down to the municipal level, the expectation is essentially that no municipality will have EMO services on their own. The expectation is that there will be regional emergency response at the municipal level, which is essentially mandating, if you are a single unit, that you need to team up or collaborate with a neighboring municipality. Probably the most notable is Kings County, and they have a proper REMO in Kings County, where the County of Kings is aligned with the towns of Kentville, Berwick, Wolfville. And I know at a higher level, some of the educational institutions and the First Nation communities, although they have their own responsibilities, but that they work regionally. So they have a senior position within their REMO structure which can sit at a table and either make a decision or speak on behalf of. What the province is looking for is to ensure that any of the professionals within the municipal world are elevated and that it's not off the side of someone's desk, as it may or may not have been at the EMO level or even sometimes at the REMO level. So the province is pulling us all up. We'll just describe it that way with respect to emergency response. We used to be a REMO until we consolidated. So of course, at one time you had former town of Hantsport, Windsor, and the former municipality of West Hants, and they did form a REMO. Now, because of consolidation, we are an EMO organization. So the province is pushing us to collaborate either with East Hants, which would make a proper county REMO. Coincidentally, geographically, Hants County could be a REMO, or that we play with a neighboring REMO. So we're just kind of working through some of those pieces now. The province will be mandating. We do anticipate these changes will be mandated through what they're calling the regulations. So I have the benefit of sitting on an EMO, too many acronyms, a CAO roundtable with the provincial deputy minister, and just kind of forming these regulations. So we kind of get to see them in advance, but the things that I've noted for the most part are the expectations on the municipality. And I just kind of skim your meeting package there, which I see Rhonda has up on the screen. You can see some of the benefits and some of the anticipated collaboration. The other piece here is the Nova Scotia Guard, which I think the province is pretty proud of at this moment. In its creation, it's matured fairly quickly up to, I understand, the search for the two children a few months or a few weeks back or a month or so ago was the first kind of life, I guess, that the Nova Scotia Guard was able to display. And of course, the Nova Scotia Guard, you can have volunteers that are wanting to make food or clothing, right up to specialized skills, maybe drone operators or welders or people in the trade industries, which again, depending on the emergency, may call for the resource. And then the Nova Scotia Guard is meant to help coordinate those resources, because I know, as Tim would say, sometimes during emergency events, there's no lack of resources. It's the coordination of the resources, the timing of the resources, and to validate that that resource has that qualification that can enter into an emergency environment and be safe for all parties involved. So those are just some of the pieces that are kind of forthcoming from the province. But if I could summarize, it really is them pulling us up and making sure that we are event ready in every way. So I do see that as probably additional staff resource moving forward for us, so that we can meet that senior leadership expectation that they have. So I think that's probably the 5-minute summary of that, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions if someone has one in relation to the report or above and beyond.
Any questions for Mark on that one? Seeing none, that will conclude our meeting for this evening, because we don't have any correspondence. There's no public for participation. There's no in cameras. Our next meeting date will be October the 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Move by Guido, second by Councilor Yanis. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much.